Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. Good morning. Good morning. So today we have my friend, Dr. McGuire, which I didn't even know she was Dr. McGuire. But anyway, we'll talk about that. So Dr. McGuire, I want you to give us a little bio. If someone had to introduce you, tell us who you are.
I would have to say mom, wife, sister, cousin, nurse. And so mom is my greatest title. I feel I'm the mother of two boys. One is 19, one is 10. And then I'm raising my little brother. He is 17 and he'll be graduating in about a month. My husband's a retired U.S. Air Force veteran. He did 20 years. And I am the founder of New Hope Mental Health and Wellness. I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and a family nurse practitioner. And I started that business almost 4 years ago, but it really didn't become a real business until about 18 months ago. And so I moved back home after my husband retired from the Air Force, and I was working in facilities, and I kept getting, well, where do you work? Who do you see? And I'm like, oh, I work at this place where we only see like 20 patients and you have to be admitted, or I can see you virtually if you're in jail. And they're just kind of looking at me like, okay, I can't see you, obviously. So I had a little birdie on my shoulder, my husband and my sister, like, you need to start a practice. So New Hope was born, and the rest is history.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So now I always ask this question because as nurses, like, why nursing school? Like, of all the things that you could have done with your life, why nursing school?
So that's really funny because a lot of people assume that I, like, as a little girl, wanted to be a nurse. That was not true. I wanted to be first I wanted to be a microbiologist. Then I wanted to be a teacher. Then I wanted to be a dietitian. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I said, I'm going to be a dietitian and I'm going to work in sports medicine. Well, neither of those things happened. I went to school for about 1.5 years, and then I found out I was pregnant. So I came back home and my sister was like, I'm going to nursing school. You want to go? And I'm like, not really. So I said, well, I'm looking at the prereqs, and I'm like, I have some of the classes. And I was like, I'm actually going to go ahead and be a dental assistant because it was like a quick program. I was like, I can work as a dental assistant, and then I'll go to nursing school. Well, while in that one semester that I was a dental assistant student, I realized that wasn't for me. And I was like, well, I'll do hygiene. Well, the last class of that semester that I had to take a final, I studied, I had an A in the class. Well, I really didn't study that hard for the final because I was like, I'm good to go. Well, as we sat down to take the test, she said, oh, this test is worth 50% of your grade. Well, I'll be honest, that made me angry because I'm like, I didn't study like it was 50% of my grade, right? So I took the test, I got a B. So I ended up with the B in the class and I quit. And so I moved over to the nursing program. I had 2 semesters left before I could apply, and I had just enough prereqs that I could go ahead and apply. So I applied to LPN school and RN school. And at this point, I am pregnant. Okay. So my son was due in August, and he ended up coming in June. And so I had to put a pause on all my classes during the prereq classes. And it was really a leap of faith because this program, this RN program, was extremely competitive. And I got into both programs. But the RN program, they told me, was 400 applicants for 40 slots. And then they had a point system. And so out of that point system, about 100 people had the 100 points. So I was like, oh, and I found all this out after I found out I had gotten in, because I called and I'm like, hey, I have to let the LPN program know if I'm going to join them like today. And so she goes through the process over the phone. She's like, well, there were 400 of you, then 100 had the 100 points. She said, then we just threw your names in a hat and pulled them out. And so I was one of the 40 something that was picked. And I'm like, okay, this is obviously for me. So did the 2-year program and the rest is history. So I always tell people my sister was supposed to be the nurse, not me. But once I get into something and I like it, I'm going to run with it. And she actually never got to go to nursing school because she deployed twice. So first she was in the National Guard and she deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq. So she was like, okay, obviously I'm not meant to be the nurse. So have fun with that, kind of thing. So she took a different career path, but nursing school picked me, so to speak. I didn't necessarily wake up one morning and say, I want to be a nurse and take care of people, but I am so grateful that it worked out. All respect to dietitians, but nursing is definitely my calling for sure.
I love that. It's crazy that 10% of the class gets in and you are part of that 10%. That's because you're super smart. I mean, I knew that whenever I first met you, but we'll just go on and we'll talk about a lot of other things. So now, how did it feel to be a single mama in nursing school?
So it was very interesting because I was the second youngest in the class. And so I was hungry. Okay. I was like, I have to be able to take care of this baby. Right. So there were times that I would be holding him and study book in one hand, baby in the other. And my sisters still talk about that. Like, I was like, thank God he was a good baby. I knew when he would nap, I would study. And then I worked a little part-time at a daycare. So it was rough. Like, it was not easy, but it's definitely doable. I had a great support system, but it was tough. But looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, the first 2 years, that program was definitely the hardest. I always tell people like that's hard. Then the RN and the BSN, not so hard. Masters was hard. Postmasters, not so hard. Doctorate hard. So I'm like every other, I kept fooling myself into like, oh, this one won't be so bad, So looking back, I would definitely say the 2-year degree was the hardest because I had no previous knowledge. I was coming from, not having any medical education. So it was a blank slate.
I love it. Yeah, I don't think that my master's wasn't super hard. My BSN wasn't hard, but definitely that first one was hard, and that last one was it was a beast. I mean, I was like, we got to do what now? We got to have a book,
right? Are you kidding literally. Me? I was like, give me a test. I'm a test taker, so I was always give me a test. They're like, oh, there's no test. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be hard.
This is going to be interesting right here.
Yes.
So now once you, and I think that's a testament to whenever you're in business, because whenever you're in business, it's not going to be easy, right? But it is, anything that is worth it is worth going through the challenges of each and every part of that. So I love how you walk that out, because let me tell you, some people just, they don't want to walk through the process. Successful people are not incredibly smart. Successful people just don't quit. Okay. That's the deal. That's the deal. So now, what made you want to advance? Like, what was it, just that you were all in, or what was that about?
So I will say that I loved school. Like, I love to learn, love school. And I grew up in Florida, and they gave us what's called the Bright Future Scholarship. They actually still have it. My brother just qualified. So if you make certain grades, certain test scores, they will give you money for school. It's lottery money. So I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. So I knew out the gate, that's the way I'm going to college. And so I was able to get nursing school paid for, and they paid for most of my bachelor's as well. So I was like, why not just do it, because at the crossroads, it was at one point I was going to apply to 3 different schools. I was going to apply to BSN, LPN, and RN. And I remember looking at my mom and I'm like, hey, will you keep Isaiah for me if I go to Pensacola, which is about an hour from my hometown? And she's like, I mean, I will, but I don't want to, like she was my mom loved my child, but she was like, you're his mom. And when are you supposed to come home and take care of him? And I'm like, well, it's only going to be for this amount of time. And I was like, never mind. I'll just do it this way. And so she was like, you can stay here as long as you need, whatever. But she just kind of looked like, I have my own stuff to do, right? Ironically, which is funny because less than 2 years later, she had my little brother. So it was just going to be practice. She didn't know it. But anyway, um, what was I saying? We were talking about why did I excel? So I remember going to a clinical, and I want to say it was either in my bachelor's or my ASN program, and we went to the health department, and there were nurse practitioners there, and I looked at, kind of had that moment where I'm like, what do they do? And so I had the opportunity to follow one, and I remember calling my now husband, then boyfriend, and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to be a nurse practitioner. He's like, what is that? I'm like, I don't really know, but they have a master's degree and they prescribe meds to people. Like, that's the level of like influence I would like to have in people's lives. And he's like, okay. Like, little did he know he was like investing in like a foundation of education for me, right? So, granted, he didn't pay for that until we were married. Like, don't get it twisted. We weren't doing all that. But anyway, so as soon as I finished my BSN, I went straight into the master's program. So I finished the 2 year in '06, the bachelor's in '08, and then I finished the MSN in 10 at the end of 10. Like, I literally had no more than a semester off. I just kept going. And once I got the family nurse practitioner, I kind of hit pause for a little bit. Had my youngest son. We moved to Texas. And then while I was there, one of my colleagues, I was working as a kind of the walk-in provider, just seeing all the sick people in a FQHC. And we were talking about psych. And I was like, when these people come in, I don't know what to give them. And he was like, I don't either, because it's not a primary focus in the F&P program. And I said, I give them a little Prozac and I hope for the best, And so after about a year being there, he and I were talking. I was like, I wouldn't mind getting a postmaster's in psych. And he's like, I wouldn't mind either. So he already started the process of kind of looking. So he's like, these are the two that I'm looking at. Now, granted, we were in Abilene, Texas, and the programs were in Wichita Falls and Arlington, Texas. So about a 2.5 hour drive either direction. So I applied to both. Here I go again, applying to both. And they both were like, hey, we're not taking postmaster students right now. We're full. I said, okay, no worries. So I tell him, I was like, hey, don't even waste your time or money. They're not accepting us right now. He was like, okay. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a letter from email from both. They're like, hey, we've actually decided to admit you. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I felt terrible because I had told him not to do it. So I went to the orientation to the school in Arlington, and there were maybe like 6 or 7 postmaster students. And the other, one of the ladies had driven from Wichita Falls, and she was like, yeah, I'm going to do this program. And she's like, just trust me on that. This is the program where you want to be. So fast forward, I start, I finish, and loved psych, loved it. Continued to do a little bit of family practice at that time. And then my mom passed in 2014. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I need something to focus on and think about it, besides this. And so that's when I did my doctorate. And the rest is history. As they say. Mm-hmm.
History. So I'm going to go right now to a commercial break, and then we're going to explore your mom passing away.
Okay.
Our live event is going down twice a year in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, called the Millionaire Nurse CEO Conference. We will be covering the blueprint and master plan to grow a wealthy and flourishing company. We love that you listen to the podcast, but we want you in the room. We will be sharing insights on marketing and sales strategies so that you are able to create more impact and make more money, creating more freedom so that you can do the things that you love. So join us for the nursing event of the century. Go to vpnursing.com to sign up for this life-changing event. So we're back. So tell me a little bit about your mom. So how did that come? Obviously, how old was your brother when your mom passed away?
He was 9.
9. And so, and how long ago was that?
I almost block it out of my memory. 2014. So almost 9 years ago. It'll be 9 years in August, because he'll be 18 in July.
And so, can you discuss like kind of what happened with her passing away?
Sure, it was very sudden and very unexpected. I'd seen her the day before, and her legs were really swollen. I'm like, Mom, how long have your legs been like this? I just got in from Texas. Actually, the day she passed was the day that my postmaster's was conferred. And I was like, I kind of want to, go to the program. And I was like, no, I haven't been home all summer, which I usually would go and stay quite a bit during the summer. And I was like, no, I need to go home and see my mom, see my family. And I was like, Mom, you're probably in heart failure. And she was like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Just like very matter of fact. And so the next day I got a call that she was gone. And I'm like, huh? It blew me out the water because I'm like, I just saw her. And I had gone down to Tampa to visit with my in-laws because my father-in-law had passed in May. And so it was just like, huh? It was very unexpected. She was young and we did not see it coming. I think she knew she was sick and just did not tell us.
Yeah, I think that one of the things about our parents, at least, especially with, my mom, they're just super funny, just kind of, passing off things and
Mhm.
just, how they are. But I think that their resilience is what built the tenacity within us, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just the whole thing. And, to have that happen, very unexpectedly like that. And she has a 9-year-old. How old was she?
49.
49,
Mhm.
49. And so understanding, those instances and those how, because we eat healthier, right? Now, because of those things, because we have seen how they have affected, our parents and how they have affected, the people that have went before us. But apparently, she was an amazing lady
Yes.
because she raised a super amazing daughter. So,
Thank you.
my condolences. I know it's been years ago, but it's never ever easy
Right.
whenever you're talking about your mama. Um, so I'm gonna pivot a little bit into your representation. You were talking about representation in education.
Mhm.
And so I always say that the reason why I'm able to do what I do is because of the fact that I Oprah was she has always been my inspiration. Like I look at her
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, if she can do it, if she looks like me, then okay, I can do it too. And that's a
Mhm.
whole thing. I don't think people really understand the value in that. It's
Absolutely.
huge. It is
Mhm.
huge. So tell
Mhm.
me a little bit about what your experiences is when it comes to representation in education.
So I teach online for a couple of nurse practitioner programs, and I kind of left that out of my bio. I've been doing that since I finished my doctorate. I guess this will be year 7. And so, even being that person, you don't really think anything of it. You're just doing you, right? But when you get that email or you get that phone call, or even at one point they were texting me or messaging, and it's like, hey, I just want to let you know how happy I was to see your picture as my faculty in my class. And it's like, oh, well, thank you, and it's not, I won't say it's pressure, but it is to a certain extent because you have to realize that people are watching you. Even though you're just doing life, you're just being yourself. You don't think anything of what you're doing. I'm just being Kamiko, right? So it made me really think more about like, okay, if that's the way they see me, then how does everybody else see me? Because I might be their first as well, and they don't look like me, and that's okay too. I grew up in an area where we're a military town, so I was always the only little black girl in class, really, and so it doesn't stand out to me as much. I'll just say that much. I'm accustomed to it. I've been groomed for this, so to speak. Like I'm used to being the only one in the room. So I will say that it was a breath of fresh air, and it was really nice to hear that, and to even at some points, almost they kind of looked at me as like an unofficial mentor because of all the things that they kind of read the bio and they're like, hey, like that is awesome. I want to do that kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, well, you can. I always tell people they didn't close the door behind me. Like you can come right behind me and do the same exact thing.
That's exactly right. Hold on just one second. I do apologize.
Okay.
Just yes. I know. Okay, so I'm back.
Okay.
So now let's talk about let me stop this camera. So now let's talk about you investing in real estate, because you tell some stories. Listen, some stories about real estate, and it is just it's just like when we first like really sat down and talked with each other, you were telling stories. So tell me about your investment in real estate. Like, why you even started investing in real estate?
Okay.
Obviously for the return on investment, but what are
Sure.
the give me a little bit some more things. Like, give me some of your wild stories as it
Okay.
relates to investing in real estate.
Oh goodness. Well, I'll be brief on the start. So the same sister that was gonna go to nursing school with me, and the same sister that was in my ear about starting a practice, we were on the phone one day. I had been in Texas for probably about 6 to 9 months. My baby was little still, and she was. We all talk super fast, so we're like, "Da, da, da, da," and she says, "We're gonna buy some real estate." And but what? And I said, "Wait. Rewind the tape back. What did you say?" And she was like, "We're buying investment properties." And I was like, "Tell me more." So she lives in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm trying to think time frame 2013-ish, 12, 13-ish. Okay. Just to give you an idea of what the real estate market was like, nothing like it is now. And so I briefly mentioned it to my husband, and I'm like, "Hey, they're about to start investing in real estate, her and her husband." And he's like, "Okay." So I was like, we should too. And he's like, "Okay." So my husband's not, he'll, even if he doesn't want to do it, he'll at least entertain the idea. And so he'll at least go do his own research so he can make an educated decision. Even if he says no about things, later on he'll come back and be like, "Well, I actually found this, so maybe we can do that." Long story short, about a week or two later, he's like, "Hey, come here." He pulls me over to his computer, and he has his property pulled up. And it's two condos side by side, not on the best side of town, but nonetheless, the price you could not beat. 1,200 square feet, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath, two of them, $55,000.
Wow.
I was like, "Let's go." Right. So, and at the time I'm working part time, he's full time active duty, and we still got this baby. So, he finds a guy on Craigslist, and he comes in and does quite a bit of the work for us. We have another crew come in and do the rest. One was moving ready, one was not. So within about 3 months, 4 months, we had our first rental properties. And, we've since sold those. We actually bought two additional properties there, sold those. And then when we retired, when he retired, um, we moved. We always laugh. I said we moved the empire east, so we purchased homes in Florida, and we have one in Mississippi. So a funny story. It's funny now, but it was not funny then. So one of our houses that we have is located about 30 minutes north of our house here in Florida, and it was owned by another investor. He had held it for about 3 years, but he had put new carpet in there, had it painted, new roof. Like, it was cute. Like, we always gauge it like, "I'd live here." Like, some we'd be like, "Nope, never." Others, sure. So it's a great location. So we get our first tenants in. It's a young family. They have 3 young children of their own, and they have 3 foster children, is my understanding. We sent out pest control to all the properties, okay, quarterly. And we kept getting notes back about this one specific house, German roach issues. And, we're going to go back in a month. We told her she has to clean up because we can't even get into the bedrooms. So I see this because we have a joint account for the real estate stuff. And I'm like, "What is happening?" Now, mind you, about 2 weeks prior to that, she had messaged me like, "Hey, I want to know if we can renew the lease." And I was like, "Sure." I don't see why not. Like, you guys pay. We haven't had any issues. I don't see why not. After I kept seeing, I said, "But we'll talk as we get closer." So I think they were due to renew in May, and it was like February. And my husband's like, why is she asking so early? And I'm like, I don't know. We usually try to get with them about 60 days prior to the end of the lease. So we kept seeing these notices from the pest control company. So I said, if they can't even get the roaches under control, we got a problem. Because this house was, if we graded it, I'd say a B plus. It was a cute house. We go in there after we tell them to leave. She texts me and she's like, hey, because our schedules didn't align, so we weren't able to do the final walkthrough with them. And so she said, hey, everything looks great. I just didn't get a chance to clean the carpet. I said, okay. I walk in there. I open the door and roaches start falling from the door seal. And I was like, yeah. Like
Oh
when I
my
tell
God.
you, I was ready to lose it. Okay. And I hadn't even seen the rest of the house. So my little one who was with us, and he goes, nope, I'm going to the car. And he turns around, he does a quick about face, and he gets in the car. And he's my funny child. And so I walk in the house, my feet are sticking to the tile. I go down the hallway to the bedrooms. Doors were off the hinges. The carpet in the bedrooms, that's the only place where there was carpet. And the master, I wish I had, I'm sure the picture is somewhere. You could tell where the mattress was. That's all, like it was clean where the mattress was. So they had the mattress on the floor. And when I tell you that carpet was almost like, I wish, like when you step on it, it crunched. That's how dirty the carpet was. And I was fuming. I was, I'm just like, and my husband just walking around. I mean, we were speechless. I had never seen anything like it before. So I walked back outside and I'm like trying to just breathe through the scream that I want to let out. Roaches, mind you, everywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere. So about a day later, she sends me a message and she was like, are we going to get any of our deposit back?
No, no.
Ma'am. No, ma'am. I was like, well, between the cost of replacing all the carpet and the roast infestation, I don't see how we could get, I said, I don't see how we could give you any money back. If anything, you owe me money. I had to get the whole house repainted because roaches, like, I guess something to do with roaches and paint. I'm learning new things, right? Honey, I was so, right. This is stuff I did not want to know. So my dad's friend, he did carpet for like 30 years. So I had him come and pull the carpet. I told my husband, I said, we're not putting something right back down. We're going to pull the carpet. We're going to get it fumigated. Like we had pest control come in. They had to do 2 treatments after I put 12 bombs in that house. I did 12 myself. I would run in there, set them off and leave. And I did 12. Okay. And they still were creepy crawling. They weren't falling from the doors, but they were still in there. Right. And this is a family affair as well. There were times that my brother went with me, my oldest went with me. Like I was just like, yeah, come on, we need to go set these bombs off. Or my husband would go, whoever was available. So my dad's friend comes in and he looks at the carpet. He's like, I've never seen carpet this dirty before. This man did carpets for 30 years. Okay.
Wow.
When he pulled it up, the padding was sticking to the cement foundation underneath. That's how nasty it was. And he was like, what are they doing here? Like work on a car? Like it was oily. It was just nastiness, right? So we get the carpet pulled up and I take to cleaning. I literally mop the foundation with bleach water because there was part of the padding stuck to the foundation. And so a lot of the work my husband and I do ourselves. Like my husband always jokes with me about like pulling out my wallet to fix problems. And I'm like, there's times when that's appropriate. It's either time or money. If I have the time, I'll put in the time. If I don't, I'll spend the money. So it was one of those things where we were like, yeah, we can't let this happen again. So now that house, after they, we did everything, it ended up being just actually cuter than it was prior because I got to pick the paint and the carpet, which that's my favorite part of rental properties. And now we instituted a different model. We have 3 young men living there, and they rent a room each. So I like it because they keep themselves accountable. If somebody's doing something they're not supposed to, they're messaging my husband. He's the contact for that house. hey, this is what's going on. And we actually had to evict someone due to that. And we're the eviction team as well. I had, it was right before we were going to Atlanta for our conference that we hung out at. And we had 7 days. So night before, I'm running up there, putting it on the door, and I'm running back to the car, and my husband's in the car, ready to go. Like, I'm the runner, he's the shooter. Like, if something pops off, Dr. McGuire, the other one, was ready. So it was just funny. I just laugh because I'm like, these are the things nobody talks about. This is the ugly of being a real estate investor. Now, yeah, you can put it off on somebody else, but nobody's going to take care of your property and watch over it like you will. I've had property managers in the past when we were in Texas because at that point I was in school and had shifted to full-time work, and we had small children and he was active duty, so we did have property managers there, and we do have a property manager for our home in Gulfport because it is a short-term rental.
I love it. I love it. I know that story that you told me, but that is crazy, crazy, crazy.
Mhm.
Listen, I wish that we had more time because we need to talk about being married in business and
Yes,
all of that.
yes, yes.
But that was worth the story for sure.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. McGuire, because you're absolutely amazing, and
Thank you.
you're just so super funny. So if you want to learn how to monetize as a coach, join our Facebook group. It's called the Millionaire Nurse CEO group. We have our next masterclass on monetizing as a nurse, May 9th, 2023. You can go to vpnursing.com to sign up. And that is it for us. Do you have any closing remarks, Dr. McGuire?
I would just say if you think you can do something, do it. That's all there is to it. I follow the thought process of I can do anything for a little bit of time. So that's literally how I got through the programs and things like that. Like, there is an end date. So, the time's going to pass anyway. So you might as well have something to show for it.
I know that's right. I love it. I love it. You guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.